Hello, everyone. Good morning. Hope you are doing good this Monday morning. We will just wait for a couple of seconds until everyone joins the meeting. We have a lot of people joining, already 500 people joining. Happy to see you all here. So I encourage you to write on the chat, where are you coming from? Where are you based? Just to know how our audience is integrated, composed. From Barcelona, from Bogota.
Wow.
From Lebanon, Mexico, from all around the world, actually.
Yes, Kenya.
Such a diverse audience we have today. From Argentina, Ecuador, Costa Rica, from all around. I'm so happy to have you all here. We will wait just a couple of more seconds. There are still people waiting to enter. So we will kick this out. Good morning, everyone. My name is Luciano Gasparin Paladino. I'd like to welcome you to this SMExport week. This is the new cycle of free training sessions on international trade led by Connect Americas. This program was created by Connect Americas, which is the business platform of the Inter-American Development Bank, and it's led together with the Center of Entrepreneurship of the International Chamber of Commerce and with the support of Google, Camacol, Jampro, and Export TT. Just to give you a little bit more context, this cycle will take place throughout this week, from today, Monday, until the very last day of the week, until Friday. And on each session, we will delve into a different topic on what SMEs need to know to access international markets. In this training program, you will not only acquire valuable technical skills, but we will also have some practical sessions so you can start to see the potential of export. For those who are not familiar with Connect Americas, Connect Americas is the largest business platform in Latin America and the Caribbean. It was created 10 years ago in 2014 by the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, in collaboration with Google, with MasterCard, Sealand, Meta, and DHL. Our goal in Connect Americas is to help small and medium-sized enterprises do more and better businesses and investment in their countries and also abroad. And we train entrepreneurs, accompany them in their internationalization process, connect them with clients and suppliers abroad, and provide them with financing options information. Nowadays, we already have more than 750,000 users on the platform. So if you are not part of Connect Americas yet, I would like to invite you to join us at connectamericas.com. It's completely free. So be part of this business community. So for those who have questions about Connect Americas or about the SMExport Week, you can contact me via LinkedIn through the QR code that you see on the screen. And just one thing before we start the session, we will have a presentation led by our speakers first. And then at the end of today's session, we will have some time for Q&A, for questions. So please, all doubts or questions that you may have, you can leave them on either on the chat or on the Q&A button that you have at the bottom of the Zoom window, so we can answer them at the end of the session after the presentation. Also, remember that those that participate in at least 80% of this week of the SMExport Week sessions, you can request your participation certificate. So for those who cannot attend a particular live session or join late, or even if you need to leave early any session, know that all the sessions will be recorded, and every day in the evenings, we will send them by email. And also there will be a landing page in Connect Americas where you will be able to see all the recordings. So no worries if you miss something. If you think that this program or this certificate might be useful to a colleague, to an employee, to any professional, you still have time to invite them for our upcoming sessions. So you just need to go to connectamericas.com/SMExport Week, and anyone can still register to the event. So now let's begin with today's session, which will be about internationalization plan. We'll have a great set of experts directly from Miami. They will talk about this topic. We'll have the participation of Patricia Arias. She's the executive director of Camacol. Camacol is the Latin Chamber of Commerce of the USA. We will also have Jose Garcia, who is the director of corporate development of Camacol, who will also be joining us today. And I will also like to thank the president, Shouchi, who is the president of Camacol, because of all his effort to make this happen. So Patty, Jose, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you all here with us today. So I won't take any more of your time. Thank you for being here. And Patty, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And it's a real honor and a pleasure to be here. I'm an IDB alumni, so I served in the bank at the end of the late 80s, beginning of the 90s. I was only about 3 years old at the time, but I was a precocious little kid. But it's really a pleasure to be here. And this is a very important topic. Being from Miami, Florida, is international trade is the essence of our economy and tourism. But trade is so important, and we provide assistance not only to the big companies, but our main clients are small and medium-sized companies. So we're able to do this thanks to the help of Miami-Dade County, the mayor of Miami-Dade County, Daniela Levine Cava, and City of Miami. So we thank them. We thank our sponsors. And believe it or not, the public library system, who is extremely interested in providing assistance to small entrepreneurs. Please, after JM is finished with his wonderful presentation, you can email us, and we can do follow-up. Like I said, that we can do, we'll connect, because the thing is connecting. So without any further ado, Joe, it's all yours. Take it away.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Luciana, for that gracious introduction. To underscore what Patty said, the economic lifeblood that we experience here in South Florida, in the metropolitan Miami area, is so heavily geared towards an international market. We are the very cutting edge of commercial and business evolution in the world. We show the world how international trade can function well for all parties. So, let's see. So I'm going to share my screen and start this because I know that time is tight and I want to be respectful of your time. So let me make sure that I'm doing this right. Not a technically savvy person, but here we go. Okay. Camacol is the Latin Chamber of Commerce of the United States. And as Patty mentioned, these are the sponsors that we are very grateful for them in assisting us in helping you. The topic of this discussion is growing and internationalizing the entrepreneurial firm. Who are we? We're Camacol. It's the Spanish abbreviation of the Chamber of Commerce, the Latin Chamber of Commerce. We focus on entrepreneurial thinking. We have a team-focused professional environment. We emphasize sound business principles, and we have an emphasis on small and minority-owned businesses. We help the big guys too, but we're really here to help the small and medium-sized companies, the SMEs. We were founded in 1965, and it's the largest Hispanic business organization in the state of Florida, and one of the oldest and most influential minority business groups in the United States. For 6 decades, our mission has been to foster entrepreneurship within this community, and also giving it an international scope. And that's where we conduct programs to help our community and our state by strengthening business and economic development and international commerce. We work with, political, business, community leaders, local partners, national partners, statewide, international, global partners to ensure that our economy strengthens and grows by helping other economies strengthen and grow. And we focus on job creation, retention, entrepreneurship, and economic development. Our mission is to develop these sectors and to help them with a global reach to foster economic growth and jobs. The overview of this presentation is to go over quickly entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial firms, a quick overview of the model of entrepreneurship, some entrepreneurial strategies, and most importantly, internationalizing an entrepreneurial firm. Entrepreneurs are engines of creative destruction, and that sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. Entrepreneurs don't wreck things for the sake of wrecking things. Entrepreneurs, they basically knock down an old building to put in a newer and better one. And the inside entrepreneurship that we're going to provide has to do with industry, resource, and institutional views. Those are the ways you need to be looking at your entrepreneurial decisions. What is entrepreneurship is to identify and exploit previously unseen opportunities. Those people who do that are the entrepreneurs, and they are the founders and owners of new businesses, or usually new managers of existing businesses. Keep in mind, this is not the exclusive domain of SMEs. It's predominantly SMEs, but not exclusive. Because SMEs are 95% of all global enterprises. They generate over 50% of the total value added to an economy. Depending on the country, they generate between 60 and 90% of all employment. But keep in mind that only a small number of entrepreneurial firms survive to a second generation. A key to that is internationalization, and we'll get to that momentarily. They constitute 80 to 90% of businesses in the world's developed economies. They generate 68% of the American GDP, almost 80% of the GDP on average in other countries. And they employ over 80% of the US workforce, almost 90% of the global workforce. Here's what you need to consider as a model for entrepreneurship. There are industry-based considerations, there are resource-based considerations, there are institution-based considerations. And by the way, I'm gonna go quickly because I know the time is tight. We will make this PDF available to anybody who requires it, just so you can have a more in-depth version of what we're discussing here, because I also want to make sure we have time for all your questions. What are the industry-based considerations? The intensity of intercompany rivalries, Coke versus Pepsi, Palmolive versus Procter & Gamble, that kind of thing. Number of participants, because those participants that are already in the industry are likely to crowd out newcomers. That's in every industry. There are capital-intensive barriers to entry, and you need to figure out how those suppliers can reduce their bargaining power and how buyers can reduce their buying. This is the kind of consideration you have. If you want to reduce the bargaining power of the people with whom you're doing business with. And you also have to be aware of the threat of substitute products and services. Resource-based considerations are entrepreneurial resources that must create value, that must be rare, that must be inimitable, and must be organized. The institution-based considerations are the formal institutions that cover new ventures. That could be professional bodies, it could be government entities, etc. And looking at the differences in government regulations of startups versus existing established businesses. The strategic factors for an entrepreneurial firm are growth, innovation, networking, finance and governance, harvest/exit, and for today, internationalization. I don't know why it's doing this, but it is. Keep in mind that when you start a new company, the excitement of that new company, the excitement of that innovation, the excitement of a new development is what attracts the entrepreneurial mindset in the first place. That entrepreneurial, mindset has to harness resources and capabilities towards entrepreneurial vision with entrepreneurial drive and providing entrepreneurial leadership. An entrepreneurial strategic factor, the first one is innovation, which is different from it's a form of differentiation. and it creates a more competitive, sustainable competitive advantage. You invented a new widget that allows something to go 3 times faster. That's a competitive advantage, and that's an innovation. The issue is, how do you go from innovation to a commercially viable activity? The owners and managers and employees of entrepreneurial firms are more innovative and risk-taking than those of large firms. The larger the bureaucracy, the more likely there is somebody whose financial vested interest is in staying employed, and staying employed by not making mistakes. And you don't make mistakes by saying no to initiatives. That doesn't work in an entrepreneurial company. Another factor is networking, which is to construct and tap relationships, connections, and ties which you have developed for commercial advantage. These are necessary to overcome the liability of newness. Nobody wants to be the first person to try something. The intensity of those networking relationships is important, as Patty described our relationship with the Inter-American Development Bank, which is, she has such a strong relationship, going back to the 80s. And networks represent significant resources and opportunity. It allows you to leverage your activities across a broad spectrum of commercial entities, and will enhance and lead to a successful entrepreneurial performance. Financing and governance. The very short version is, the faster you can reach a critical mass, the likelier it is for an entrepreneurial entity to survive. And because of that, an entrepreneur is willing to accept more outside investment, which means outside control, in order to reach that larger size, that sort of safe zone of size. Here is a quick scan of what employees, number of employees mean to a company and their chance of surviving. If in your first year you have over 250 employees, it's almost 100% the chance of surviving. The same goes for over 40 years. Harvest and exit. Keep in mind that selling out is not a negative. It's kind of the goal. And the routes for entrepreneurial harvest and exit are: you can sell an equity position, you can sell the entire company, you can merge, you can go public with an IPO, or you can engage in strategic bankruptcy to reposition yourself. These are the advantages and disadvantages of an initial public offering. We won't get into that, but you can look at it if you get the PDF. Okay, internationalization is the process of increasing your involvement in markets international to you. This is a dynamic process explained by continuous interaction of static and changing variables. Why should you internationalize? Because the benefits are, you can exploit company-specific advantages. If you are the only company that can make a particular widget, selling it in your home country is great, but being able to be the only person to make that widget worldwide is a massive improvement in your position. There are efficiencies from integrating operations. For example, if you need to buy some components for your products from a different market, being in that market allows you for better vertical integration. It also allows you to take advantage of the other country's sources of competitive advantage. For example, reduced labor costs. It could be reduced material costs, etc. And third, you get to leverage the networks you have developed. As companies grow and as a business expected to cater to more owners, by that I mean shareholders, there's a reevaluation of the focus of the company. And new markets should be contemplated as companies evolve, so the business does not stay static. Now, keep in mind that new methods and new expertise may be required, and strategic planning will be required. But internationalization is one of the very best avenues to achieve company renewal. A lot of times, a company's just treading water. Sometimes they're called zombie companies, where all it does is it makes enough money to keep going. And if you can internationalize, you can give that company a massive boost in the arm. Okay, what are the pros and cons of internationalization? Number one, the financial ones are financial performance, sales and asset growth, enhanced survival, risk management, and increased value of the company. The downside is you have a strain on financial resources. To go from your country to another country is not free. It may have an effect on your domestic market share. You may need to transfer personnel to a different jurisdiction, and that may cause a change in your domestic market share. And as you might have competitors imitate you and going to those overseas markets. There are also non-financial outcomes that are important. There is your overall competitiveness, the global perspective, an increase in knowledge and experience, an increase in managerial capability. You may find personnel from different countries that would be ideal to come to quote unquote the home office. It enhances your production capability. It enhances your brand image and reputation, and enhances your enjoyment and satisfaction. The downside is there may be conflict and there could be strain between ownership and management. The three main strategies for entering a foreign market are direct exporting, licensing or franchising, and foreign direct investment. Direct exporting is exactly what it sounds. You're going to sell your widget to another country. Licensing or franchising is you contract with a company in that country to manufacture your product. And a foreign direct investment is for you to invest directly in a company that manufactures something very similar to your product. You can internationalize your company from within your domestic market because you can export your products indirectly through domestic-based export intermediaries. Companies that are import-export companies that will take your stuff and take it to another country and sell it on your behalf. You can become suppliers of foreign companies doing businesses in your country. You can become licensee or franchisee of a foreign brand. You can form an alliance with foreign direct investors. And you can harvest and exit through sell-offs to foreign firms. We see a lot of that recently. These are the strategies as we discussed for internationalizing. And there's two basic categories, which is entering a foreign market, direct exports, franchising, licensing, and then staying in your domestic market. You can stay at home and internationalize without it seeming like you're doing much, but you actually are. Some factors to consider. Traits versus institution. For example, in the XYZ industry, we're accustomed to doing things a certain way is different from in the XYZ industry by regulation, by government institution or professional trade bodies, we are required to do things a certain way. Some companies need to actively internationalize. We call that slow internationalization because you have to have an established domestic base before you can do that. Versus companies that are born global startups. There are companies that invent a product that immediately goes global. And a factor to consider is that they're anti-failure biases versus entrepreneur-friendly bankruptcy laws. This is not the subject of this discussion, but there are strategic ways to approach bankruptcy laws to reposition yourself and give yourself an additional competitive advantage. Now, there's also a born-again global, which is what we say when a company goes in its second or third generation of management, decides to internationalize as a way to revitalize. As we said before, it's one of the most, possibly the most spectacular way to revitalize a company that is just, chugging along, treading water. There are also non-financial motives, and let's not discount those. One of the things we learned during the pandemic is the crucial aspect of mental health, basically. And in this context, we call that social emotional wealth. Mostly, I think, because it has nice initials. Companies are and should be motivated by more than financial return and wish to build on that social emotional wealth, which they achieve this way. And these are the non-financial aspects of a firm that meet certain emotional needs, such as identity, the ability to exercise influence, and the perpetuation of, quote, the dynasty. And you might want to pursue internationalization to also enhance not just financial performance, but your social emotional wealth. Now, to avoid losing your social emotional wealth, you may be risk-seeking and risk-averse simultaneously, but in different sectors. You may be risk-seeking in terms of markets you expand to, but you may be risk-averse in expanding your product line, for example. As always, when you go and expand, you have to be willing to cede some control. The more you grasp, the less firmly you can grip it. Now, let's consider the implications of this complexity for a company for its prospects of internationalization. Okay, the traditional internationalization model, which we also call TIM, It looks like this. Firms enter foreign markets successively as they become older and larger. You're in your home country, you have made a lot of success, you have grown, and you've hit kind of a ceiling. You're selling or you're going to sell. Your competitors have their market share, you have your market share. People like your product, other people like their product, and that's where you stand. That is a signal for you to really consider internationalization. Firms also then gradually commit, to foreign markets. You don't go worldwide overnight. You go to one additional market. And firms traditionally enter what they call proximate countries first. Proximate countries are countries that are both geographically and culturally similar to yours. So, for example, in the United States, we would go to Canada. It's next door, and they have a very similar culture. If you're in Australia, you would consider going to New Zealand, that sort of thing. If you are in Ecuador, you might consider going to Colombia, you might consider going to Peru, etc. And it emphasizes learning through experience. It's a deliberate but cautious process because you want to learn what you're doing and then grow from that learning experience. Now, this traditional theory has recently challenged born global companies, those, like I said, companies that were born global from the beginning. But mostly companies follow the traditional internationalization model domestically and slowly evolve to do business internationally. As I mentioned before, you are more likely to do business in a country that is geographically and or culturally similar. Here are some environmental factors, firm level factors, and management level factors that yield positive results with internationalization. I'll just touch on these really quick. They are innovativeness, how innovative you are, how well you can create partnerships, what is your learning capacity, and what is the degree of external ownership that you have. Okay, in some case, the need exists to internationalize immediately if your domestic market is too small to be a viable market. For example, if you're a high-tech company in Australia or Canada, there isn't enough Australia and there isn't enough Canada to make that financially viable. So you would have to go international as part of your launch strategy. And the advantage or disadvantage of being born global is that you don't have a domestic mindset. You don't think of just business within your borders. On the one hand, if you focus, you could have tremendous growth if the market will support it. But on the other hand, a domestic mindset is very likely or possibly could lead to psychological inertia within the company. And also, last thing to consider, strategic planning will be required to internationalize your company. Strategic planning will, of course, require new levels of communication among company members. You may have, the executive VP reports to the president and the president reports to the CEO. That might have to change. That might have the executive VP reporting directly to the CEO. They might have different avenues of communication and reporting because you're doing different things in a different place with different regulations, different customs, different everything. You're going to need much greater financial and market information. You are not there. So your intel has to be really, really solid. And you have to learn to build on different perspectives. And by the way, there will be disagreements within the company about, do we go to this country? Do we go to that country? Do we take our entire product line? Do we just bring one product? Learn to build on that rather than let that become a detriment. Now, there are some key questions for internationalization. Number one is, what business or businesses are we in? And notice the are. Not do we want to be in. What businesses are we in? We make round widgets, or we make widgets round and square. Number two is, are we equipped to do this? This means internationalization effectively. Does blank need to change? Do we need to change our production strategy? Do we need to change our marketing strategy? Do we need to change any of these things? What will our goals be? You have to write down, you have to establish your goals, you have to write them down. Because writing your goals down makes them measurable, and what gets measured gets accomplished. If you take nothing else from this presentation today, what gets measured gets accomplished. How will you achieve these goals? Yes, we have a goal of selling 500,000 widgets in the People's Republic of Albania, but that's a goal is not a strategy for accomplishing itself. You have to, how are we going to achieve it? We're going to partner with these people. We're going to have these affiliates. We're going to, consult with parts of our network to give us all things.
If you're calling regarding rental information for our properties, please dial.
What resources do you have to achieve these goals? Great, you have the goals, you figured out how to accomplish them. We're going to contact a market. Do you have a contact in the marketing world in that other country? Do you have the financial resources to contract in a foreign country? Those are calculations you need to make. Those are questions you need to ask yourself. That leads to specific issues to consider for internationalization. Do you have the capacity? Are you at capacity in your home country? You're selling 1 million widgets in the United States. You want to sell 1 million widgets in Canada. Can you make another 1 million widgets? And what does it take for you to make them if you don't immediately have that capacity? And do you have the right products at the right price for the international marketplace? Maybe your widget is the best widget in the world, but it's too expensive for Canada. Canada is more accustomed to a cheap widget that breaks after 2 years, and they can throw it away and buy another cheap one to last another 2 years, and they repeat that cycle. You need to know if you're positioned to enter that market that way. What organizational capabilities need development on your part? Do your international business networks, your company team, do those need development? Do your managerial capabilities to manage growth, are those capabilities there? Are your marketing capabilities there? Do you have outside expertise? You're going to have to find accountants and lawyers and consultants in an international marketplace. And this is the hardest one of all, delegation of authority. It is an absolute sensational recipe for failure is to give somebody or some team responsibility without authority. If you tell this particular team, go to this country and establish a sales network, select the right people to do that and let them do it as best as see fit. Don't say, okay, you got there, you landed there, okay. Make sure that on your first day you do that. Don't micromanage. That's the opposite of delegating authority. Delegation of authority shows trust in the entity and the team of that entity that you've built. So this means that you have to have a disciplined execution for internationalization. In other words, you can't show up to another country and say, hello, new country, here we are. That international strategy in your company's context is guided by the owners, but that means the shareholders, vision for the future, and the legacy traits that have been derived from the firm's competencies. Maybe your firm is really, really good at marketing and really, really good at production. That should lead your way. Okay. And sort of combining your shareholders' vision for the future and your firm's competencies will insulate your process from a chaotic loss of control. And there is no worse feeling in the business world than going through a commercial activity and feeling like it's spinning out of control. You also have to have wide consultation. You need to talk to a lot of people in a lot of disciplines and regionally, the people in different countries. You need to talk to both your senior and lower level management. And you have to show loyalty to your customers because they will give you the feedback that you need to innovate and grow this business and future generations across borders. Part of that discipline is realizing that planning change takes time and it takes resources. And you have to have structures and practices for growth through your internationalization. To explore the resources necessary to affect that strategy, you have to consider why your ownership structure that works well in one generation of the business may prove ineffective in later generations. Maybe you started out as a sole proprietorship or as a family company. Now it's a family company is too unwieldy. And to consider what governance structures are important if a company is going to be internationalized. people very often overlook shareholder-company relationships. The person or persons who started the company and may have a significant equity position, but are no longer, in the day-to-day management of the company. They still feel, correctly, an ownership of that company, and feel that management should be attentive to their requirements or their needs or their suggestions. And that interaction between the ownership and the company at large and the company's management, if you do it correctly, can be a competitive advantage. It can also be a challenge, because if people are not willing to consider other positions, if they're not willing to listen to the other person, that could be a lot of trouble very quickly. So to effectively pursue an internationalization strategy, your company must have harnessed the appropriate resources and established the correct structures and practices for running that company, either globally or in a foreign territory. Here's what that structure looks like. I'm not going to go into it right now, but you'll see it when you get the PDF. You can email us and we'll be happy to get it to you. So, internationalization and company governance. At a minimum, companies benefit from looking at options to encourage discussion among company members in the desired direction of the business. A more developed company might want to be governed by a board of directors, and even more so may even have a formalization of the management team and a board of advisors, which is independent from the board of directors. And as a personal recommendation, I cannot recommend a board of advisors more highly. It is, they know they don't have any management or any control in the company, so they can tell you exactly what they think you should be doing. And that, in my experience, has proved invaluable throughout the decades. So companies need to recognize that there are trade-offs with maintaining greater company control versus a successful implementation of internationalization. So when you go internationalize, your partner's going to look to your governance practices. That's one of the things people don't consider, is they're not going to do business with your company if they think your company is not run in a quote-unquote professional way, if it's run by one executive that does things on a whim. And by the way, there are very large international companies that get in trouble, I'm not going to name any names, that are family-run companies, and they hire and fire CEOs depending on which side of the family one particular person lands on. So that creates problems in expanding in a frictionless way. They can expand with very generous applications of money, but that's not a financially viable or financially efficient way to go global. The guidelines for membership in the management team and individual roles should be clear. You should know what this person does, what that person is expected of, and not, oh, by the way, when you get a chance, I need you to do this other thing. That doesn't work, especially when you're sending somebody to an overseas posting for your company. And it's particularly important if there's a new management, responsible for international. Let's say that you open up an international division within your company and you have an executive in charge of that. All those things need to be very, very clear, because even the smallest grain of confusion can snowball into a gigantic problem. Internationalization and the resource-based view. Resource-based view means that you have unique capabilities of resources that you can convert into a competitive advantage, because you are valuable, you are rare, you're inimitable, and you're not substitutable. You're valuable because it has an inherent value to the customer. It's rare because there's not a lot of what you're manufacturing. Inimitable means that nobody can copy you. And non-substitutable means that nobody can say, well, I can't copy it, but here's this thing that will perform the same function. So this suggests that there are firm level factors, human, social capital, organization, that form a competitive advantage. And that leads to the final question, which is your company ready to internationalize? And you should, but you may not be ready yet. And how do you select the international market to participate in? One of the things that propel you towards internationalization is company management experience, both locally and internationally, and the networks that you have. If a company does not have the expertise to internationalize, is it willing to recruit outside the company? And here are the attributes of your different types of capital that you should be able to access to go forward. It's a big chart that took up 2 slides. And now finally, I wanted to go and explain to you something about Chemical and its Hemispheric Congress of Chambers of Commerce. This is an annual event that hosts delegations, including major government officials from all over the Americas, the UK, Spain, Europe, Middle East, etc. And we've had cabinet ministers and governors and senators, vice presidents, finance ministers, etc., coming from all these countries. And we have had, last year we had over 8,000 attendees to this event. We're expecting 10,000 attendees this year, knock on wood. And I want to finish that with one final, let me see if I can do this. I want to show you the video of the Hemispheric Congress, the promo video that we have.
Jose, we're not listening to it. It has some sound or something? Jose? Jose, I think we have a kind of a little technical problem there. So we managed to saw the video, but we couldn't listen to it.
Well, I'll send a link with it with a presentation.
Okay, that will be great. That will be great. Yeah. We managed to say it, so it looks amazing, everything that you did there at the exhibition. But yeah, all the information that was mentioned on the video, we couldn't hear it.
Yeah, it is. And this year we're getting ourselves geared up to partner with the IDB at the Hemispheric Congress. It is one of the most effective ways for a company to explore internationalizing, because you have government and private partners from all over the entire hemisphere, plus a significant chunk of Europe and the Middle East coming to talk to you and seeing what you can do together. And one of the things that we at Camacol want to do, and I know that one of the things that you guys at the Inter-American Development Bank want to do, is make that process as frictionless as it possibly can be. And we're here to help. I mean, we don't do anything other than help, just like you guys. So when you see that information in the PDF, and you'll get my email, I'll put it in the chat actually. As Luciano's going through any questions that may have popped up.
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
put my email in the chat so everybody has it. You can email me if you have any questions beyond this presentation. If you want to get the PDF, you just want to get information on the Hemispheric Congress, all that stuff. Be happy to address all that. We're here to help. As a matter of fact, and Luciano knows this, and Patty knows this very well. Every time that somebody comes in, the first thing that comes out of our mouth is, "How can we help?" So, Luciano, if there's any questions, start going.
Nice. That was a great presentation. So first of all, I would like to thank you, Jose, Joe. It was really insightful. So we do really appreciate that. We received a lot of not only questions, but also comments saying that everything that you mentioned was like really fit and it was really accurate. So everyone is just thankful, and they're writing now on the chat that we able it again, thanking you for all your time and your comments. So I have a couple of questions here from the chat. So for instance, there's one really interesting question here from Pradeep Das. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. That says, the real challenge in international business is finding a genuine buyer. How can we find a genuine buyer based in foreign countries?
Okay, the short version is you're going to have to either A, visit that foreign country, B, contract with a marketing organization in that foreign country, or C, attend an international business event, such as, for example, the Hemispheric Congress of Chambers of Commerce, where you will find those buyers. The hard part is, for a lot of people, is getting started with that process. There's a lot of information out there that helps you weed out the unwise choices, but at some point you're going to have to interact with another entity to give you a hand with that. International business is climbing stairs with both legs, and you need to find your other leg. At some point, that means that you have to get up off the couch and start moving that. But my suggestion would be do some preliminary research online. I'm sure the IDB has a lot of that. We have some of that available here as well. There's also Google out there. Do that preliminary research and then consider either visiting that foreign country, contracting with a foreign entity, or attending an international business event such as the Hemispheric Congress.
Yeah, I think those are really good advice. I have another question here. It's more about not the topic internationalization plan, but more about Camacol. And it's Jose Luis Lecona who is asking if it's possible to be part of Camacol if my LLC has been registered in New York while the owners are from Mexico.
Yes.
So there we can we will leave the Camacol contact information for you all. So in case you want to contact Camacol, either Joe or Patty, feel free to contact them and see how you can
yes.
of Camacol. You mentioned a lot of really interesting topics and advice and comment, Joe. And here Daniel is asking if most of this also apply to service companies, or if there is anything different or in particular that we need to take into consideration for the internationalization of service companies.
Internationalization of service companies depends much more on a cultural affinity for the country into which you're expanding. Much more, because a product has, grosso modo, a practical application. this cup holds liquid, this door, shuts a building, etc. But a service company, there are business norms and business culture in other countries that may shock you. Not in a bad way, but it's like, I didn't know they did that there. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, they do that. They do that over there. And that is such an easy mistake to make. So the one big caveat, if you want to expand internationally, as a service company, is really do your research on the cultural affinities of that other marketplace you're entering.
Sure. And we have a lot of questions that are still coming. Here, Ilya Soto is asking, what are the common mistakes of internationalization, maybe in the IT or the food industry? Do you have any experience with those sectors in particular, IT or food industry, and any specific common mistake that they commit?
Well, to be honest, the single most common mistake, not specific to those industries, but the single most common mistake, and we've seen it because a lot of times people will come back with us, oh, I tried this, it didn't work. What did you do? I did this, and this. I go, here's your first problem is you think you've done enough research. When you think you have done enough research, do more research.
Okay.
Leverage social media to gather sort of a boots on the ground feel for that other territory into which you're expanding. The amount of under-researched expansions into foreign territories that we witness daily is staggering. It's I talked to this guy and he said this and then I went. It's the equivalent of saying, how do I go from Miami to Washington, D.C. and somebody saying, go that way. It's shocking. It really is. Do your research. Piggyback on other people's research. There is no shame in that. It'll take you, put it to this way, if you do not have 3 full days of Googling and downloading just research, if you haven't downloaded it for 2 days straight, stuff that's going to take you 2 weeks to read, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Great, that's great. So we have, I would say, more than 50, 60 questions, so probably we won't have time to go through all of them. So you have also my contact in case any of the questions are about Connect Americas or the SME Trade Hub. We will share the contact of Kamacos in case you have any specific question about how to become a member or anything specific about what they do and everything. So I have some final announcements for all the participants, but I don't know, Joe, Patty, if you want to say any final comments, something to wrap up this session?
Sure. It was a wonderful session. I think also that what Joe said about cultural affinity is extremely important. That's how we started internationally. And then Miami is a city and a county that represents so many different nationalities, and we speak many languages here. And another thing is Camacol's network is based on the national chambers of commerce throughout the Iberoamerica and Spain and the UK also. So use your chambers of commerce also as a way of vetting your companies. And again, cultural affinity is incredibly important.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people say that actually Miami is the capital of Latin America for
yes,
some.
It is.
So there's nothing better than if you're planning to get into new markets, or if you are in Latin America exclusively and you want to expand abroad, Miami is a great port of entry. So I highly recommend you to go to Camacol website, see all the benefits, services, activities that they do, because that's a great way to enter the US market through Miami. So I encourage all of you to visit Camacol website. And a lot of people is asking about your contact. So then we will send you every evening, we will send an email with the recording of each session and with some things or comments that we discussed during the session. So you will have there the access to Camacol website and any kind of contact. So you will have it this evening in the email that we will send to all of you. So To wrap up this session, I have just some announcement, and they are closely related to some of the questions that you are doing. So I will share quickly my screen. Hopefully I'm doing it correctly. So for those who arrived late, let me just change this here. For those who either arrived late to today's sessions or want to review the recordings of any of the other sessions that we'll have during this week, you can watch the recordings by visiting this link or by scanning the QR code. You will be directed to connectamericas.com/SMExport week sessions. So all the recordings will be there, and as I said, we will also send them out by email this evening. Then also there were a lot of comments in the chat about connecting. We have over 1,200 people connected here, 1,200 people connected online at the same time simultaneously in this webinar. So I know there is a lot of interest to connect among you between all of the firms that were connected. So we will encourage you to connect, do networking, and to help firms internationalize. That's why I'd like to encourage you to be part of this free business community. It's the US LAC business community. In Connect Americas, where will you find companies looking to buy products, also companies looking to acquire specific service, also firms can post there about their own products. We'll have a lot of opinion posts. So the idea is for you to connect with other firms and land in international markets. So everyone that want to do networking between you, I just encourage you to scan the QR code or go there, connectamericas.com/USLAC, and you will have the chance to connect with all the entrepreneurs and business people that are part already of this business community. And we talk about internationalization plan. Jose gave us a lot of great tips and advice. So all those that want to look for international companies that are actually right now looking for products or services like yours, you can start selling directly to them if you navigate our purchasing announcement. So this is a free benefit in Connect Americas, where you will find a lot of buyers posting their purchasing needs, so you can apply it and start supplying them. So another thing that I would like to encourage you to do is to scan that QR code or just go to that link over there, and you can check all the announcement, all the buying needs that we have already in Connect Americas, and start supplying these buyers. And one last thing, if you don't want to miss anything that is happening in Connect Americas or the IDB, we also encourage you to be part of our SME Trade Hub, which is a WhatsApp channel, so you can get all your updates directly to your phone. So don't worry about spam or a lot of messages, because you will only receive messages directly from us, from the IDB. No one else will be able to contact you or see your phone number, so you can just scan the QR code, onboard in this WhatsApp channel, and start receiving all the updates that we have from you. So that will be it for today. Again, you have here my contact in case you have any question, or if you don't receive the newsletter this evening with the recordings and all the information that we went through on today's session. So feel free to contact me there. As I said, we will also send all the information about Camacol in case you want to contact Patty or Joe. And we would really want to thank you for being part of this session today. As I said at the beginning, this is a whole week training program. So tomorrow we will talk with Google about e-commerce. So I hope to see you all there. And thank you so much, Joe, Patty, also for being part of this kickoff session.
Thank you. The pleasure.
Thank you, Luciano.
Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.